Is marketing universal? No, it's not. If you hire a B2C marketer for a B2B job, they are going to fail. The same goes for hiring an enterprise B2B marketer for a small e-commerce store. They are going to fail. There are different ways how one can approach a digital marketing role. And as someone who has interviewed over 300 digital marketers in my career, here are the different questions and different opposing points that I like to answer and discuss during interviews and even review as early as the CVs. So here's how to take another look at digital marketing and what are the 10 different contrasting points that you want to review yourself. But first, is marketing universal? No, it's not. Think about calling someone an internet expert. That's not really a thing. There are different concepts of the internet. There are web servers, there are software engineering and web developers and front-end designers and marketers and sales specialists and logistics experts and like internet service provider. There are so many different niches. And even if you call someone a developer, is it sufficient enough? Or there are front-end, back-end, DevOps, architect, senior, junior, and so on. There are different categories and different paradigms between different industries and different types of work, which is why it's not really serious to think about digital marketing as one big coherent thing that everyone understands or everyone is supposed to know. The other mistake that I see when we hire digital marketers here, and we've been over the past decade, is we know that there are T-shaped marketers who understand the overarching industry and the overarching understanding of how marketing works. But of course, they're great at one thing or maybe 2 to 3 different things. Normally, here's kind of how it goes. This is the traditional path of a marketer. They start with one specific thing, let's say content marketing or SEO or email marketing or Pinterest marketing, interest marketing. They kind of capture one thing, and obviously it's not enough for them, so they need to level up the basics. So they kind of raise the bar of the traditional strategic knowledge that they have. Then they possibly pick up another thing. For example, if they're a writer, they pick up SEO or email marketing or so, and they kind of keep drawing the line higher. The only time where a T-shaped marketer actually becomes kind of an omni-channel expert is when they are on a director role or a C-level role, and they're not the strategic expert who knows the ins and outs of that specific industry. They know what is unique to PPC, to content marketing, to email. They know how to balance things out and how to connect them and what sort of experts they need to work on for the specific initiatives. But it's really important to know that no one can be the true universal expert of digital marketing out there. There's no such thing. Again, professionals do know very well how industries play well together, but they don't spend 8 hours a day really poking into the algorithm, scrolling a specific feed, figuring out what works, what are the changes in video algorithm, the hooks, the first 5 seconds, and so on. That level of expertise only comes from working full-time on one specific thing. So let's dive into the 10 different ways how digital marketing is being approached in the first place. Number 1 is B2B versus B2C. This is one of the most traditional breakdowns of marketing that I can think of, and this is one of the first things that I'm looking into applications when I'm hiring for people. I sold a SaaS company in the Shopify space in March. I also have a B2B agency that I've been running for 14 years. I've had a marketplace, which is the third business. I have my consultancy. So I've hired lots of different people for lots of different things, as well as different forms of marketing folks. On the agency side as well, we occasionally need B2B marketers or B2C marketers, depending on whether we work with B2B clients or B2C clients. But for the vast majority of cases, I make sure this is pretty crystal clear in the job description, both in terms of the job title, the start of the job description, and some of the required use cases. And occasionally, more often than not, we seek B2B marketers who are proficient in, let's say, email marketing. We list down HubSpot, since we're a HubSpot certified agency, or SEMrush for B2B businesses. And we end up receiving applications for B2C marketers. Now, what's the problem here? In most cases, B2C marketers are unable to operate with the B2B paradigms because the B2C funnel is shorter and tinier, and it's a lot easier for customers, for prospects to make impulse decisions once they land on the site, once they land on the product page, to just decide whether they like the product or not, click buy and spend 15, 20, 30 bucks on that specific product. With B2B deals, the average contract value is often higher. It's oftentimes over 10 grand, could be 50 grand, 100 grand, or even more. So it's a lot harder to build a funnel that gets someone out the door and magically spending 50,000 on a contract from the first visit to a page. This is why it doesn't work this way. So the same goes for B2B. The efficiency of B2C is maximizing the efficiency of paid campaigns, meaning that you need to be great at crafty headlines and clickbait images and capture as many people to your ad and to your landing page campaign and increasing the conversion rate on the page. So the only thing that marketers care about essentially is return on ad spend, which should be over 4 or over 5, whatever they want to count that. And it's a pretty straightforward funnel. I'm not saying it's easy, it's complicated in a different way, but once again, it just works in a different way than B2B. So this is the biggest segmentation. The biggest difference between marketing approaches is B2B marketers and B2C marketers are two different breeds of people. Number 2 is local versus international marketing. We often get inquiries for local SEO or local marketing for different countries where we don't have any presence and we honestly cannot operate. Additionally, whenever that local marketing is localized in a specific language, which is quite common in most of Europe or Asia or Latin America, it's really hard for us to actually operate in that market. I reached out to someone in my mastermind group who really needed marketing services for their market in Brazil. And we had a brief conversation, but it was pretty clear that since we don't really speak Portuguese, which is the spoken language in Brazil, we cannot be very helpful in that specific market. Yes, we can help with strategy, but the moment we cannot really build effective landing pages or copy or email or follow-up responders or so, it automatically limits our efficiency there. The same goes for local marketing. Most of the local SEO or local marketing firms are specialized in building local partnerships with other local businesses and helping them one another. So it's pretty much a symbiosis environment. So there's a strength and the weakness of being a local and an international marketer, right? When you're a local marketer, you have the competitive advantage of having these on-site relationships with different businesses in the space, different directories, different publishers, radio, and so on, and really can dominate that specific city or even a state. When you are an international, you can work globally, but you don't really have that level of niche, in-depth level expertise for a specific local market. Number 3 is inbound versus outbound marketing. Now, the brief way I can expect that, and I have other videos discussing inbound versus outbound, including some interviews with experts in my channel, but inbound marketing is a non-interruption marketing where customers found your content while browsing organically, searching on Google or seeing organic social posts or mentioning newsletters. They have voluntarily went to a place to see your content. Outbound marketing is an interruption marketing, meaning paid ads or outbound emails, cold calling, all sorts of conversations that are interrupting. They are not in unison with what the customer, the prospect is doing at the time. They're not voluntarily going there to find that. So this is why it's completely different. Now, needless to say, we are relying on two different approaches. Inbound marketing is counting a lot more on brand affinity and brand awareness, meaning they need to develop a brand as an authoritative leaders, as thought leaders, kind of professional experts in the space, and make sure that they seek the approval and the attention of their audience through, again, unique solutions, frameworks, know-how, reports, interviews, providing data so that people seek them and go to them and subscribe to them and sign up for them and so on. The outbound marketing, on the other hand, does not really care about brand anymore. They are often known as performance-based marketing because, once again, similarly to B2C, which is business to consumer, similar to B2C, they only care about return on ad spend. So they are building a funnel reaching as many people as possible, trying to convert as much as possible backwards so that they're not in the red and they can keep scaling the paid campaigns by turning them into profitable when you account for all the other expenses that the company faces to deliver the service. So inbound versus outbound, two very different camps. Many CMOs have to juggle both at the same time. Executives are often investing a lot more in outbound because they don't see the immediate value of return on investment in inbound, meaning that they, over the past few years, they have been diminishing the brand value in favor of trying to close quick sales in a short period of time. Number 4 is marketing products versus services. There's a vast difference between whether you're selling a product or whether you're selling a service, because selling services is something that's unique and it's bespoke every single time. When you sell a service, you can build a service for 100 different people. It's always going to be different. It's never the same. There's always some artisan work put in, regardless of whether it's design or development or like structuring certain things. There's always something extra, whether it's copy, you can make mistakes, you can change the color scheme, or there are lots of different kind of context variations here. Same goes for other solutions, including SEO, right? You may perform the same type of work, but it always has to be accustomed to what's the current, let's say, positioning of the customer, domain authority, ranking, number of keywords, competitive research, what's the keyword difficulty for specific keywords they need to rank for. A lot of other factors you have to consider and your customers have to consider. So it's never the same service you provide to your specific customers. And the outcome, the results is also different. While selling products is different. When you go to the supermarket and you buy an apple, sure, there may be some rotten apples or one may be bigger than the other or so. But for the majority of things, if you're making an apple pie, you want to go and buy some apples. That's it. If you want to make an omelet, you go and buy some eggs. So they're more or less the same. What you get, how many of them you need to make an omelette, exactly what to expect out of the taste, especially with the same brand, and so on. The same goes for software products, the same goes for cars, cameras, or anything else that essentially you are aiming and attempting to buy. Approach number 5 is direct marketing versus indirect marketing. Now, what I call direct and indirect may be a little different than what you may expect, so stay with me and I'm going to explain. Direct marketing is when you market to the specific individual, the person who is buying the product and using the product and selecting the product, purchasing the product, and so forth. So this is the same person. And most people essentially in B2C, essentially in business to consumer type of marketing, or DTC, direct to consumer, this is what they do, right? If you are selling a shampoo online that you're targeting, let's say a 32-year-old woman who is looking for a specific type of shampoo or is a follower of the brand, so you want to make sure that she's buying from your specific store. The same goes for lipsticks or so. If you sell a gamer mouse, that it's probably for an 28-year-old boy who is a gamer and staying at home, and this is the buyer of the device, this is the user, this is pretty much everyone else. However, there's something else that's called indirect marketing, and this makes up for more complex decisions or solutions that involve different people in the conversation. For instance, if a company is buying CRM or marketing automation software or something else, in many cases, it comes bottom to top. It comes from the team, it comes from the supervisor, it comes from the marketing director, it comes from someone else who have to advocate and be the ambassador for that solution so that they can get the buy-in from the person, the CFO or the CEO, who is going to approve the purchase. If a guy is looking for a laundry machine, for example, or anything like that, or a dryer or so, they may need the opinion and the feedback of the wife, so they are going to work in unison in parallel. If a wife is seeking for a present for a guy, there's going to be a different conversation between who is it marketed for, who is the buyer, who is going to be a user. If a kid wants a game, they are unable to pay for that game, but their parents are. So there's marketing to the kid, but the kid has to get the approval of the family, or marketing to the family so that they actually instill that, buying that to the kid, such as buying a Duolingo license or something else. So you get the point. It's difference between whether you're making direct marketing or indirect. Indirect may go through different hoops and different stakeholders. It's a lot more complicated. So if you're in this game, make sure that the people you're hiring understand that level of relationship. Number 6 is cheap versus expensive, or low cost versus high cost, or low ticket versus high ticket, whatever you want to call it. So the difference right here is, once again, similarly to direct B2B versus B2C, whether you're selling to businesses or to consumers directly. When you're selling to businesses, oftentimes it's a higher purchase value, more stakeholders, more expensive, higher SOAs or other compliance. So usually these contracts are a lot more expensive. When you're selling to consumer, a specific individual needs to buy out of their pocket. So unless they're buying a house, car, expensive laptop, or like something else, in most cases purchases are under like $100 or like $200 or so. Like this is in most cases. So you need to be kind of price conscious because people are paying out of their payroll, and most things that people directly consume and buy happen to be cheaper. So in that case, selling high ticket and low ticket is different. There are different funnels. In terms of high ticket, oftentimes you need 17 to 40 different touch points before a customer actually decides that they are going to be working with you or consider you among top 3. Again, unlike direct to consumer, which you can post an ad and in the next 24 hours you make 20 purchases from first-time visitors who visit the landing page, see that something's cheap and decide to buy it. In B2B, the process is longer. It takes longer period of time because the purchases are also more expensive. For example, in 2023, a 6th Sense report suggested that an average B2B sale for over 10 grand takes about 12 months. The first 8 months are spent on due diligence, where consumers and kind of customers are doing researching, speaking to partners, getting recommendations on Slack or Reddit communities or kind of different places, and kind of spending the first 8 months to shortlist the top 3 candidates, and then reaching out and kind of go through the due diligence process. And what they also found is that 84% of the times the potential vendor was already pre-selected during the first 8 months. So it's mostly an RFP process that's 84% of the time is ending up with the initially selected candidate. So that's pretty important. So that's why low ticket versus high ticket, very, very different. The process is very different. Don't expect to achieve the same results using one practice in the other case. Number 7 is marketing to small organizations versus large organizations. Now, there are different forces at play here, and there are specific businesses that are only selling to SMBs, to companies that are a solopreneur, a team of 5 people, a team of 10 people or so. In these cases, you are always selling to the founder or the 2 co-founders and always going to the top because there's no complex hierarchy of people. However, if you go to Amazon is currently employing over 1.3 million people. So you cannot just go to Andrew Jassy or Jeff Bezos or someone else and expect them to be taking your purchase order. They have hundreds of people dealing with that alone. And again, then you have different stakeholders and decision makers. But even in organizations with like 50 to 100 people or 100 to 200 people, oftentimes you have multiple stakeholders that you're selling to. Let's say if you're buying marketing automation solution, this needs to take into consideration the marketing director working with the team, their boss, the CMO, the CFO approving the decision, CEO deciding on the marketing strategy, CSO if there's one on the sales strategy, whether it's accomplishing that goals, potentially CTO or like VP of engineering who may have to integrate that into existing systems. So there may be 5, 6, 7 different stakeholders plus assistants, ops managers being involved in the conversations. So understanding that and that you need to develop relationships with different champions in the organization, not just one person or 2 people, is integral, and it's super important to just making sure that your conversation is going in the right way. Number 8 is in-house versus outsourced marketing. Now, what do I mean here? As someone who is running a marketing agency and business advisory firm that's also providing marketing consulting, I'm seeing lots of different compilations in how marketing is being managed in different organizations. In some cases, it's 100% in-house, meaning that everyone's employed as a W2 or full-time contractor or so. In other cases, it's 100% outsourced, or maybe there's just a marketing director who's handling 10 different agencies. And in most cases, it's hybrid. You have in-house teams and kind of in-house management. You have several agencies, some freelancers or contractors, and kind of it's a healthy balanced mix between different solutions that need to be fixed. Now, our kind of rule of thumb and kind of what we advise businesses, B2Bs, growing and even funded startups is don't hire for services that are not going to be super integral to your organization and they're kind of support functions, or you're not going to sell and like really dive in really deep and hard. And you kind of need for a specific channel, specific solution, specific something else. Now, what do I mean here? Now, our kind of approach is we provide both technology and marketing and kind of business consulting services for different businesses. In some of our cases, we have technical businesses hiring us as a marketing agency because they develop a complex SaaS product, or one of our businesses has 30 million customers on their video recording solution. So they are deeply in tech, but they need developers for their marketing suite, their marketing sites, learning tutorial base, and so on. This is one example. In another case, we have marketing firms hiring us for our technical front, even though we are essentially doing the same thing, but they need more technical expertise internally, and they need someone who speaks that same language, but can also has the capabilities to integrate that internally. So again, the way we look at that internally is we have an accounting firm we work with, because we don't sell CPA services. We have a legal firm that we have a retainer with. We have a cleaning firm that's kind of cleaning our offices. So this is not an integral core part of our service. It's not important for our culture to be internal. We don't have that much work to have a team of like 6 people working full time. So it makes more sense offloading that to experts and kind of leasing their services and making sure they understand the space and they stay in touch and in contact with other industries and kind of through other clients, understanding and enriching themselves and their skills in the process. So we deploy the same process here, regardless of whether there's an in-house team or an entirely outsourced team. There are different paradigms and different ways to work here. But if you're hiring someone, it's very important to understand what's the capacity of how you expect them to work for you in that business. Do you want them to manage agencies? So they should have done that previously. Do they want them to be the in-house person who has to do the hard work, like writing content, building campaigns, sending emails, running paid ads or so? Because some people are only managing agencies and they don't have the capabilities to do that, or something in between. So make sure you understand that process, figure out the right mix before you take the next step. Number 9, one of my favorites is logical versus emotional marketing. Now, I am a very logical person. So if you take a look at Myers-Briggs, I am INTJ, which means the thinking is kind of higher than my feeling edge. If you take a look at DISC, I'm a dominant person, meaning that I'm on the left side of the spectrum, which is more results and goal oriented. So I really resonate with logical content myself. However, there are a lot of people, including in my surrounding and my direct family, who are highly emotional, and they mostly resonate to storytelling, to personal stories, to FOMO, to scarcity, to some of these other triggers. So in most cases, what we do on the agency side is we always test both approaches at the same time. So while running our experimentation suite, while running our paid campaigns, what we do again is we make sure that we have different emotional and logical triggers. We do remarketing. So if we launch a campaign and someone sees a logical page and they bounce, we retarget them with the opposing page. So if they saw logical, we send emotional. If they saw emotional, we send them logical. So this is really increasing the chances to speak the right language to the person, regardless of whether they correspond more to emotional triggers or logical triggers. So this is kind of one of the secrets that can really increase your conversion rates if you make sure that your solution is speaking to the right people. I'm going to give you a very reasonable and simple example that you're going to understand. Take a look at Apple's site and Apple's pages. They rarely speak about features whatsoever. They're always reimagining and reinventing, and like they're immersing you in that like picturesque environment of how they're just walking you through a story for something else. Take a look at any of the Android vendors such as Samsung or LG or Motorola or so. You are going to see feature specs, best camera in the world, best CPU in the world, tons of RAM, and like all the other features. So this is a good example of logical versus emotional. What works and when is a different story. But especially if you're working with like tech people, like selling to CIOs, CTOs, like VP of engineering, expect many of them to be on the analytical/logical spectrum. If you're selling to creative people, marketing, most of the time, many of them are in the emotional spectrum. And of course, there are differences in both sides of the barricade. Number 10, performance versus brand marketing. So we spoke about inbound and outbound as two different directions, but I want to open a separate bracket, performance versus brand, because this is important. Now, performance marketing is all sorts of marketing that are measured on a performance basis, meaning that you can actually work with agencies, and instead of paying them for their time or paying them a flat retainer or something else, you can pay them on a performance basis. It's pretty common for agencies that are paid by lead, meaning you're only paying by lead or by closed customer or so, or agencies that are paid by ad spend. So the more ad spend you spend, the more you're paying them as a result. So it's really scaling with you. This is kind of performance based. So they know that if these campaigns are working for you, if they're earning you the right return on ad spend, you are going to increase the spend, and it's kind of paid by performance. Their percentage is scaling with you. And if they're not, you're not overpaying for this service as a result. Brand marketing, on the other hand, it's really hard to measure. It involves thought leadership, it involves podcast appearances, search engine optimization, producing white papers and internal reports, showing up at like TV appearances, like keynote speaking. A lot of that is not directly associated to conversions, but the more you and your business is doing that, the easier it is to make purchases, the more organic traffic is going to your website, the easier it is and the easier you sell actual prospects, because there's a lot more trust out there. There's a lot more recognition and reputability in your business, and it's showing everywhere regardless. So it's one of the desired choices for businesses, and it's making sales so much easier. This is why understanding both sides of the spectrum is super important in selecting which of the two segments you're going to focus on most without neglecting the other, and how to bundle and structure your team as a result. So that's it. These are the 10 strategic different ways, the opposing ways to take a look at digital marketing. This is kind of a resource that I authored first in 2020, and it has been taught at over a dozen different universities that have been using my content for educate their people. If you like this resource, please like and subscribe, or if you press the notification button, that's going to be great. It's going to help me build more marketing resources for you. In the meantime, make sure you check the other videos for the biggest B2B challenges out there. or my 18 approaches to building great advisory framework for over 400 of my businesses.